you have to let it go. Take the lesson and leave the pain. Because you're going to have more lessons and you're going to have more pain.
If you have junk coming into your mind, expect to have junk coming out of your life, out of yourself. Junk in, junk out. Junk in, junk out.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level University Mastermind, week 28,
I believe.
Today we are going to talk about the top 10 ways to improve your relationship with yourself. You talk to yourself more than you talk to anybody else. You listen to yourself more than you listen to anybody else. Your relationship with yourself is just as, if not more important than your relationship with anybody else. So we're going to give you 10 ways. Number 1, positive affirmations. If you're a client of mine, you have heard me talk about this. This has been an absolute game changer for me. If you're somebody who lacks confidence, if you're somebody who doesn't have a ton of belief in yourself, this is going to be an absolute game changer. So for those of you who have heard my story, when my girlfriend left me back in 2015, one of the things that I did was positive affirmations. That is how I got into personal development. Okay, so these positive affirmations, I said, I am handsome, I am talented, I am intelligent, I am valuable, and I said, I am going to make the most money I've ever made this year. And that's what I did. Now, I focused on that affirmation, and I got more of that. Okay? That is the power of affirmations. Now, is it magically going to happen? No. But you're going to be paying attention to certain things. You're going to be paying attention to positivity. Okay? Literally, I want to make sure I'm not saying this anywhere else. Yes. So last year, around Christmas time, I could barely afford presents for Taryn. And you guys know Taryn is my everything, so that hurts me to say. But I set the affirmation that I am going to become financially free. I set the affirmation every morning, and I still write it every single morning. I am financially free. PodStrong is the best podcast service in the world. I am abundant. The universe is on my side. I am the best podcaster I can be, the best speaker. Every single morning I write those things because I'm trying to start my day that way. I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to the right things, okay? You are already affirming something. Maybe in your mind it's, I'm not good enough, or what are these people going to think of me, or I'll never be able to do that thing. You're already telling yourself a story. But imagine if you started your day with a positive story instead of a negative story, okay? Are you waking up first thing in the morning and rolling over to social media? Because if you are, you're not starting your day on a positive front. And that's not an affirmation. That's actually comparison. You're literally starting your day by comparing yourself to other people, right? Imagine if you compared yourself to your affirmations. You guys, if you start that every morning, genuinely, I have my notebook right here. Right here. Every single morning I do these. And it's an absolute game changer, right? I'm becoming the best version of me. I'm becoming the best podcaster I can be. Every single morning. You already believe what you tell yourself, change what you tell yourself.
It's absolute fire. This is the thing. These are fundamentals, and you're going to notice common themes. One of the common themes here is when you write something down, I'll go briefly into the science of this. And again, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I have watched a lot of TED Talks. I've read a lot of neuroscience books. Neurosculpting is one of them. But when you write something down, your central nervous system is engaged. In other words, you are speaking directly to your subconscious mind. When you write something, it's more powerful in terms of your retention by, I think, and again, I'm throwing numbers out, but I think when you write something down, you're 40%, you remember 40% more or something like that than if you didn't write it. Or no, let me correct that. If what Kevin and I say today, all of what we say is 100% of it, if you write it down, you'll remember 40% of it. If you don't write it down, on average, you'll remember 10% of it. And again, this is just what I've learned through Tony Robbins and different things. If you repeat it back to yourself and write it down, I think it's upwards of 70. And then I think it jumps in the high 80s if you're going to teach it to someone else. Why power is everything. So these concepts, if you right now decide, okay, I'm not just going to learn these for me, I'm actually going to teach them to someone I love, you're actually more likely to retain it yourself. And one of the quotes I live by in that regard is, you cannot hold a torch to brighten someone else's path without also brightening your own. Emilia and I just started doing relationship talks every weekend, and the person we were on, her name was Kate, she literally said, like, why do you guys do this? Like, I can't believe this was free type of thing. And we just said, honestly, we want to help others. And what was really cool, and I talked to Kevin on my way to the studio after it, is I said, it's so cool because when we go back to help someone in a tough spot with the intimate arena, it reminds Emilia and I how grateful we are to be where we're at. And most of what this other person's going through is what Emilia and I have both been through in past relationships or being single in the past. And so that's the key here with affirmations. You're going to want to write them down, and you're going to want to write them down consistently, and they're going to change your life. I definitely, and what you're going to realize too is a lot of the other things are also affirmations in their own unique way.
Fire.
Number 2, the promises you make to yourself are either going to build self-esteem or they're going to lower your self-esteem. Okay? I'm convinced that most people don't want to make big promises to themselves because they've let themselves down so much, and they certainly don't want to make things publicly known. Okay? So imagine you had a friend who broke as many promises to you as you've broken to yourself. I want you to ask yourself, how much would you value that friendship? Now, here's the kicker. If you don't, let's say you make promises and never keep them to yourself. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to eat healthy. And you keep breaking the promises, you're going to value yourself less and less and less. When you value yourself less, you believe in yourself less. So you stop making promises. Okay? So the way to reverse this is to say, you know what? I'm going to make a small promise. I'm going to drink 50 ounces of water a day. Every day, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make it a must. When you do that consistently, you're teaching your brain that you're awesome. You're teaching your brain that you're good enough, okay? And so I often say, you've probably heard me say, why would Warren Buffett invest in a stock that he didn't believe would grow? This is just a simple analogy for when I grew up in an environment where I noticed certain people would not really aim very high. I grew up around a lot of people who had very low bars and low goals, and I don't mean that in any sort of negative way. Maybe that's their prerogative. That's totally fine. But one thing that I did notice is that when adversity came, I would jump to determination for a brighter future, and so it would end up a net win no matter how painful it was. But that wasn't always the case with other people who went through those same things. And I think it's this self-esteem piece. It's this self-belief piece. And you've heard us talk about self-belief, but I think the higher your self-esteem is, the more likely you're going to set high bars and rise. But if you have low self-esteem, you're going to have to start small and build self-esteem little by little and then get momentum. And yeah, you'll crash eventually. Kevin and I do too. But then you know the process of building it back up again, okay? And so the question I want you to ask yourself is, where are you breaking promises to yourself consistently? And what's one small promise that you can make in that specific arena that you can actually start building your self-esteem back and your belief back?
Alan mentioned failing or crashing, burning down. Number 3 has a lot to do with that. Number 3, focus on small wins. So Alan and I had a young man by the name of Michael Gorman on the podcast. We actually met him at another event, and he helps out the homeless population in Lawrence. He literally goes to them. He brings clothes, brings food. They put on events so they have something to look forward to. He takes them out of the cold. He takes care of the homeless population. Okay? He invited us to speak to the youth of Lawrence. I don't remember when this was, probably a year and a half ago at this point, a year ago.
Yeah.
And I absolutely bombed this speech. I definitely let my ego get the best of me. I didn't prep. I literally had 3 flashcards, and I was like, this is going to be fine. I'm the best speaker in the world. I've given 2 speeches. This is going to be fine. But I bombed it. It wasn't good. It was very bad, actually. And I was questioning my identity. Am I really a speaker? Am I really a good podcaster? What does all this mean? So Alan and I recorded it, and we ended up going back to Alan's house, and I don't think we got there until 9 or 10.
Yeah.
I think we got McDonald's, as we often did, and we put it up on the TV, and we watched it. Alan and I watched the entire speech from the start to the end, and it wasn't as bad as I thought, but I wasn't happy with myself. But I was able to focus on the small wins. I was able to find positivity in the negative, right? This was my 2nd or 3rd speech. Okay, in front of a bunch of kids that I had never spoken to kids before, right? So my expectations were this was going to be easy. But I did do some good things. One of the kids wanted to be a speaker. I had him come up and tell his story. Right? That was something that was good. I involved the crowd. So
Push-ups.
I had a panic move and everybody did push-ups for some reason. I don't know why, but it worked out well. So I gave myself credit, even though things didn't go perfect. I think that's one of Alan and I's unique strengths. When if something happens and a podcast guest cancels, we take that time and we turn that loss into a win almost every time. So imagine if instead of only focusing on the outcome of I either crushed it or I didn't do well, you were able to dig into like small wins. So many of my clients in the past, if you lack confidence, you don't give yourself enough credit for small wins. I could ask you what you did terribly today, and you would know. But if I asked you what you did well, you might struggle to find that. So my question is, how often are you actually giving yourself credit? How often are you actually beating yourself up because you didn't get as much done as you wanted, or the result wasn't what you wanted? This is a huge one, especially if you're low on the drive to 5. That is a game changer.
Another great example of focusing on the wins, and we're not always great at this, but I do think when we're together, we probably are. I think I could do a better job individually. But we went to go see David Meltzer. This was before we knew him, before he was a coach and friend and mentor. And we wanted to see him speak. We drove to what, New Jersey?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. So that was like a 4-hour drive, something like that.
Yeah.
4-hour drive. And we missed his speech. And I think you've probably heard this, but we ended up seeing Michael Burt speak. Michael Burt is a fire speaker, and he killed it. And I still took, I think, 3 pages of notes. We met Michael Burt. Michael Burt came on our show twice, and we learned a lot from him. Now, fortunately, the universe provided, and someone literally grabbed Kevin and I and brought us over to take a photo, and then brought us literally to Dave. And Dave is still posting videos from that, which is kind of cool. See the backs of our heads, which is nice.
Yes.
But it's a trip. And let's say hypothetically that it didn't work out and we didn't see Dave. I guarantee you Kevin and I would have gone back to the hotel and said, listen, we invested 4 hours. Let's get something out of this. Okay, we did meet Michael Burt. And I remember telling Kevin in the middle of the speech, because the speaker after Michael Burt I felt bad for, because Michael's a really good speaker and this guy honestly wasn't, in my opinion. And everyone kind of shut off after Michael left. But I went up to Michael Burt and said, hey, my name's Alan. We would love to have you on our show. You killed it. Stephen Covey's a huge hero of ours because he talks about Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Yeah. And so the thing is there's always going to be losses. When we drove to Toronto to see Evan Carmichael, he could have canceled an hour before. And Kevin and I would have found a way to make that a W. And so that's the thing. Instead of focusing on the loss, you're going to have to take the wins out of the losses, and that definitely needs to become a habit if you want to have a good relationship with yourself. Number 4. Now, this one Kevin and I did an episode about not long ago. And it was basically, I think it was Jim Quick's book, Limitless, that I was listening to. And he says you have a dominant question. We all have dominant questions that are running in the back of our mind. If you think about what thinking really is, it's asking and answering questions. Okay, is this speech going well right now? Yes, I think so. Am I saying too much? Probably. Right? So we're always just running in the back of our mind, okay? And if you get stuck in your head, that's not a good thing. My question for you, and one thing I want you to focus on, is what are your dominant questions? And so when we did this episode a while back, I told a story about how I had a client who, and I've done this with several of my clients, so if you're a client of mine or ever have been, you might think this is you. I asked, what do you love about your physical appearance? And I'll never forget this. I was in the basement of her place. We were hanging out and watching a movie, and it was after the movie, and I said, what do you love about your physical appearance? Because this person was struggling with self-esteem big time, okay? And this person is someone who everybody I know considers gorgeous, okay? Just beyond beautiful. And she even said, everybody says I'm beautiful, but I don't feel that way. And what I realized is when I asked her the question, what do you love about your physical appearance? She couldn't answer. She's like, well, I kind of like this. And she had to think a lot. It's like, I kind of like this. But yet, when I asked her, what do you dislike about your appearance? Boom, 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 rattling them off. What does that tell me? As a friend and client, or coach rather, it tells me she's too often asking herself the wrong question. What do I dislike about myself? Everybody ask themselves that right now. What's one thing I dislike about my physical appearance? I bet you that doesn't feel that good. I know my answer. Okay. One more question. What do you love about your physical appearance? For me, I think I have a great smile. Luckily, my mom forced me to get braces. She told me I'd thank her one day. She was right. Okay? Yay. Okay, all of us feel better now. When you feel good, you'll do well. But what if the question that's dominant is, why do I suck? Why am I not good enough? Why don't I believe in myself? Why do I always mess this up? That inner critic is Jeffed. You got to get rid of that.
Jeff.
And so questions control focus. If you have questions you ask yourself, this is why journaling is so important. One of my questions in my journaling habit now is, what do I love about myself? What am I most proud of? Okay? So where are you asking yourself bad questions without knowing it? And that's something I want you to ask yourself.
And just to Alan's point, just like a lot of these things you're already doing, just maybe in the wrong way, right? Especially with affirmations. You're already talking to yourself. You're already asking yourself questions. Maybe your questions are, why can't I do this? Versus how could I do this? Right? Like that's a completely different question. And that's going to change and improve your relationship with yourself. Your relationship with yourself is the most important one. Like, again, we have amazing mentors, but if my relationship with myself isn't good, they're not going to be able to help me. They can give me all the advice, all the tactics in the world, but at the end of the day, if I don't believe in me or if I don't like who I am or any of those things, it's going to be far harder for me to succeed. It doesn't matter. The advice won't matter as much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Number 5. This is a good one here. Pause. Meditation. Number 5. So, Alan and I, when we first started masterminding with the one and only Mark Metry, we were sitting at a Dunkin' Donuts in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I remember him saying, "Hey, do you guys meditate?" And we're like, "Nah, man, that's for the birds. No, none of that for us." And he's like, "You guys need to. Like, biggest mistake you're making right now, Kevin, eating that donut, and you guys together not meditating." And at first, it's like, I don't think so, man. I don't really think so. But when he went into it, he was telling us, like, guys, we're all in, and stick with me here. We're all in the matrix, right? And what meditation is going to do is it's going to allow you to break down certain walls. And it's going to allow you to dig deep and understand yourself at a deeper level. So if you really want to improve your relationship with yourself, you have to know yourself. Think about that for a second. Like, how well do you know yourself? There's a lot of things from my childhood that I just don't remember. And when I meditate and do some other things that we're going to talk about, that really helps illuminate those things for me. Like, there's a giant block of my life that I don't remember. I have no idea what happened. And every day I'm trying to get back to that. Okay? So imagine if you sat down, you committed to saying, you know what? I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes a day, 1 minute a day to start. And you started peeling back these layers that have been built up. Whether it's ego, whether it's fear, whether it's resistance, whatever it may be. Imagine how different your life would look. You almost can't, because as you meditate, you're going to become aware of more things, and you're going to be able to reflect on more things from a higher awareness. That is so powerful. Now, can it be painful at times? Absolutely. It absolutely can, but it is worth it. So my question to you is, where and how often are you sitting in silence? We are always, I love the fact that you guys listen to the podcast. Please never stop. Mm-hmm. But are you always listening to something? On the ride to work, you're listening to something. Maybe at work, you have Spotify up. Now we all work from home, so maybe we have Spotify up, right? Are you falling asleep with the TV on? Are you listening to something in the shower? You need some time for silence. Why do you have breakthroughs in the shower? For most people, it's the first time in the day where they weren't listening to something. Why do you have all those thoughts run through your mind before you go to bed? Because that's the first time you're sitting in the dark with nothing on, right? So imagine if you did that throughout the day proactively, you wouldn't have to do it reactively.
It's fire. I remember Mark pulled out a piece of paper. He said there's 7 layers to the ego, and the only way to get closer and closer to your highest self is to unpack the layers through meditation. And he said the interesting thing is when you stop meditating, the layers start to come back. And so again, perception of self, relationship with self. Just think back. I want to remind you, do you love your hair? If not, why not? It's such a trip growing up. You would hear people be like, my hair's too thin. I wish I had thicker hair. And then you hear people with thick hair go, my hair's so thick. It's so hard to brush. I wish I had thin hair. Why are we all wishing we were a different way? It's so interesting to me. It's like, I wish I was taller. It's like all this stuff. If you are constantly wishing you were different, especially if it's things you can't change, your relationship with yourself is going to be not good. And all of this is going to come down to like self-awareness. Self-awareness is going to bring the ability for you to really improve the relationship with yourself. So breathwork, as Kevin already kind of alluded to, breathwork is, if you were on the Mastermind, I do not remember which one it was. It's episode 402. I know that.
There you go.
Episode 402, Samantha Skelly.
Overcoming Overwhelm, I believe was the name.
Overcoming Overwhelm with Samantha Skelly. She took us through a 6-minute breathwork exercise. And we had, I think, 23 people in the room, and I think like 20 of them were crying, or 24 and 22. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was powerful. I was tearing up. Kevin was tearing up. You know, Samantha literally said, because I've since listened to it back several times because I use that as my breath work, she said, like, you guys are making me cry. Now, I've since understood why breath work is so powerful. And basically, the high-level version of this is that our body stores trauma. So I want you to imagine you as a kid, and something negative happened in your environment. Maybe you saw someone get abused. Maybe you got abused. Maybe someone raised their voice. Maybe you saw some unsavory things. Okay, in that situation, we have a cortisol spike. We go into fight, flight, or freeze, and we have to do something, take action, get out of that room, or whatever. The thing is if we don't process that through mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, it gets stored in our body. And now, I remember for me, after my car accident, double yellow lines would freak me out because I crossed over them and almost got killed. So for the longest time, I would get pulled over by cops because I was too far on the right side of the road. And luckily, they were very kind to me, and they said, we totally get it, because I just told them I was in a tough car accident. But they freaked me out. For a while, I was claustrophobic. Doorways would freak me out and stuff. Okay, that's PTSD. Our mind and body, and I also got jumped, and I'm not going to go into that story, but there's certain things that your brain, your subconscious, links up as triggers. If you've ever been through traumas, there's certain things that trigger you. Have you ever been in a really negative state? I remember you were talking about something that reminded you of work.
Hotels.
Yeah.
Hotels do that to me.
And you would get triggered, and it's like, why do I feel so terrible? Yeah. It's because your subconscious remembers, even though your conscious doesn't. Okay, Kevin mentioned how there's a big part of his childhood that he doesn't remember. One of the cool things about breath work is that when you do it, you're healing those traumas. And for me, when I first did it, my throat chakra would like pulse big time. And what's interesting, and I just connected this recently, you mentioned how when we were in California and we were having that tough conversation, my throat always gets red. I think that might be connected.
You get very red.
I get really, really red whenever I'm angry or suppressed or struggling or fight or flight. So if I'm ever red and I say we're good, we might not be.
Your neck's a little red right now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, anyways, so, but we're good. We're good. But here's the thing. My throat chakra would vibrate and I would cry. I believe that when you cry, you're actually healing. You're finally processing that old trauma. You know, Kevin texted me not long ago basically saying, I did breath work today, bawled my eyes out.
Oh, yeah.
And
ugly cry. Ugly cry.
It's a good-looking cry on him.
Yeah, ugly cry.
And I think what's happening there is you're finally releasing all that energy that got pent up. It got pent up. You got fight, flight, or freeze. If you are in a fight or flight response and you freeze, don't do anything, that energy has to go somewhere. Apparently, it gets stored in our cells. It gets stored in our body. And I'm not going to go deep into the science, but breath work will definitely change your life. So imagine how good you'd feel if you did breath work consistently and consistently had those memories and then actually healed from them. For me, it's been such a game changer. And so I want to ask you, and I want you to ask yourself more importantly, where might you have trauma? I remember when I read the Teddy story for the first time to Emilia, and I was like convulsing, crying. You probably have traumas you're not even aware of. You know, thinking about my stepdad and different things like that I'm not going to get into. We all have this stuff. Little t, big T, small trauma, big trauma. Breath work is going to help you unlock those parts of your subconscious, and so is meditation, that might have gone unnoticed or hidden for a long time.
Somebody reached out to me today and said, I heard you on the podcast talking about how often you cry and the fact that you're not afraid to cry with Taryn. And I literally sent them. He basically said, like, I don't really cry that much. I can't remember the last time I cried. I literally sent him the Breathwork YouTube and said, try this. Like, I bet you will cry. It's a good cry. It's not painful. It's releasing. I always think of Taryn. I think of this journey. Like, it's always good, and you always feel better after. So that if you are somebody who really struggles to feel emotion or show emotion, I bet you that will be a game changer for you for sure. Number 7, admitting hard truths. I am going to tell you guys something that I don't think I have ever told. I've never told it publicly on the podcast.
On the Tori Leto episode.
No, not even this part.
Oh,
this
no.
is the opening part.
Oh, okay.
So the first time I was ever exposed to any form of pornography, I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. Back in the day, we had what was called the black box. So we had all the channels. So we had all the pay-per-view channels, which meant we had the Spice channel. So that was the first time I ever was exposed to any form of nudity or sexualization. And for the longest time, I dealt with porn addiction, like up until recently. Like last year, 2 years ago is when I really understood what was going on, and I set out to kind of defeat that. So why am I telling you this? When you admit hard truths, a couple things happen. Number one, and you've heard me talk about vulnerability. If you're a man or a woman and I just said, hey, I have a porn addiction, we are now connected. You and I are connected because you're saying me too, and you're understanding that you're allowed to be yourself here. That's one. Number two, you can also really level up your why power. Okay, so for instance, say Alan comes out and says, hey, I used to have an alcohol addiction. And 10 people reach out to Alan and say, hey, man, because you talked about that, I've been able to really come into my own and break that habit. Next time Alan sees a bottle of something, he has way more why power because he knows other people are counting on him. Same with me. A lot of people have reached out, a lot of men, and said, hey, I struggle with that same thing. I really appreciate you being vulnerable. That's always in the back of my mind, right? That's always in the back of my mind because that pull doesn't necessarily go away. So when you admit a hard truth to yourself, and again, you don't have to do this publicly. I don't expect you to go on Facebook and say, hey, I'm addicted to porn. Like, we're living different lives here, so that's not what I'm saying. But if you do admit a hard truth to yourself, in some way, shape, or form, you can help others with it. Right? That problem of yours, that ugly thing that you've hidden, can now be a beautiful piece of help for other people. Okay? Suicide for me. Guys, there's a reason I talk about it so openly, because I know a lot of people who have struggled with it, and I don't want to be the person who's afraid to talk about it. Because if I'm afraid to talk about it, I'm not going to be able to help somebody at that deep level. So, imagine if you admitted some hard, difficult truths to yourself, maybe ones that you don't even realize yet, maybe things that you've been running from. Imagine how many people you could help. Maybe that's your purpose, right? Evan Carmichael says your purpose comes from your deepest pain. That was always a pretty deep pain for me. I never understood why I was so pulled to that and why I was wrecking relationships with that and all sorts of ugly things. Like, I never knew why, but now if anybody reaches out, I can help them. So today, tonight, tomorrow, what is one small truth, small but difficult truth that you can admit to yourself? Honestly, maybe it's I have an ego. When Alan and I connected, Alan had an ego, I was insecure. We had to admit those things, and then we were vulnerable together, and we could help each other. It's very hard to change something that you're either not aware of or you don't own. Mm-hmm. So that is my question to you. What's one thing? Small. You don't have to say it here. You don't have to tell your friends, your family, your spouse. Write it down. Think about it. But it won't change until you admit it.
Fire, man. Which is really good. If you really hear what Kevin just did there, and I remember when he first admitted that publicly with the Tori Leto episode of the addiction to porn. I remember him and I were in the bathroom later. It was multiple,
we were in the bathroom?
multiple stalls. Multiple stalls in her office building.
Just kidding.
Yeah, no. And I remember going, I can't believe you just admitted that publicly. I commend your courage. That's tremendously courageous. And it's interesting because now, we're at a different level of vulnerability where we're willing to say those things. I think if you're not willing to admit the truth to yourself, I think it's just the pain avoidance tendency. It's much easier in the moment to say, no, I don't have an ego. That other person is wrong, than it is to say, you know what, honestly, I think I was a little bit arrogant there and I could really work on that. It's really easy to wish your problems away. The problem is that that's a micro win for a macro loss. Whereas if you have the courage and the strength to say, you know what, this is a kryptonite. This is an issue. Okay, one thing that I guarantee you almost everyone in this room has an issue with is getting lost in the sauce on Instagram. Okay, Instagram is messing with people. I hit my search bar and it's immediately a bunch of unsavory things. Okay, it might as well be porn in certain regards, right? And Now, there's a lot of value to Instagram, networking, connecting with like-minded people, growth mindset. Tori Leto is a great example I use of someone who's really valuable on that platform. But if you're not careful, you're going to fall down those rabbit holes all the time. So what are your kryptonites? Look them in the face. Say, this is a kryptonite. I'm going to overcome this thing. I often talk about how it took me 5 years to quit drinking. And now it's interesting. I've been with Emilia for 11 months now almost, and I've never drank since meeting Emilia. She's never seen me drink, which is just crazy because that used to be such a big part of my life. And again, understand yourself. Kevin was exposed to porn at 7. I was exposed to alcohol at 14. My sister is 3 years older than me, and she hung out with 21-year-olds that came to our place, okay? It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to admit it and then work on it, because you're going to feel like $1 million when you overcome that stuff, and that's your relationship with yourself. Okay, number 8.
We're hammering.
We are hammering. We got time, man. We're
going to be all right. As always, 10 promised, 2 bonuses. Always.
2 bonuses.
Promise and over-deliver. Always.
That means we can do more long pauses. Hey, insert long pause here. Okay, number 8. So if you listen to the show, which I'm assuming most of you do, and I just realized, by the way, that we stopped promoting these on the show. Today we recorded and we didn't promote.
No, it's in the mid-show, I think. It's going to be fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine.
Okay, so purpose prayer. I wear this around my neck. And for anyone who doesn't know, I say the quote, "You cannot see the stars during the day. They are always there. But sometimes it takes the darkness, aka emotional pain, spiritual pain, mental pain, to see that which you simply could not within the light." Every one of us can relate to a dark time where we noticed something that we never would have seen before. Half of you, if not more, have probably come across this show when you were in massive pain. I have one client who talked about how she had a shopping addiction, and I said, I guarantee you, and when we got to know each other and I found this out about her, I said, I bet you reached out to me right in a painful moment. What was the pain you were in before you reached out? Okay? Pain creates action. And she said, yeah, I was about to buy this shopping bag for $500. I didn't need it. And again, I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if it was really 500. But all of us have had those dark, dark, dark moments. For me, I tell the story about Your World Within Live. It's a month before it. And I get into a debate and an argument with Eddie Pinero and T-Mac at the time, who co-hosted that event with us. And it was a really, really emotional time for me, and I wanted to go to the bar. I left the room, and I remember instead of going to the bar, I went to the beach. And I'm sitting there on the beach, literally crying, I'm putting so much time and effort into this. I just wish I was more understood, all that stuff, that pity party kind of thing. And again, I'm just hurting. And then I sit there and I go, why am I here? And I look up, and there's seagulls, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, why am I in Florida? What am I even doing here? And I'm like, I'm here to help people. And I immediately shift. I go from sadness to determination. And here's what I did. I recited my purpose prayer. So I told Kevin ahead of time I'd share it with you guys. If you haven't heard it, I'm going to share it with you now. But all this is a letter from your highest self to your human self. I believe you have a spiritual self. Personally, I believe that life is more than what meets the eye, more than what meets the 5 senses. Okay? So this is my highest version self. And I wrote a letter, and I'll tell you about when I did it. So after my car accident, I was in a lot of pain, a lot of regret. And I said, what do I want to live for? I almost just died. What do I want to live for? What do I want my legacy to be? And it was this. And this is mine to this day. And I can tell you wholeheartedly, every single day for the last almost 6 years, I have recited this to myself. Sometimes I yell it to myself. Sometimes I write it. I remember I wrote it for a full year. Sometimes I recite it to myself. Now I usually recite it silently. Sometimes I'll speak it to myself, okay? And some of my clients do have purpose prayers of their own as well. So, I and I alone am the keeper of my own happiness and self-worth. I shall not allow naysayers to sway me from my purpose, nor to deny me of my right to pursue a life well lived on my own terms. My every moment shall be spent in an effort to better the quality of myself and others, and to spread the utmost love and goodwill with every last breath that I take. I shall defend health and freedom with all haste, and put forth a forever and purposeful effort to balance out that which is clearly evil and malicious in this world. My mind, body, heart, and soul shall be one and of the greatest possible measure. I shall forever take steps to ensure that I always learn from the past, enjoy the present, and focus on a brighter future for all. For I, Alan Lazarus, will exit this world one day a better place. Okay, you want to improve the relationship you have with yourself? Okay, that's mine. And what's interesting is that I've written a lot of things in my life. This one never changed. The first time I wrote it that was it. I spelled utmost wrong, which was interesting. But that's kind of a spiritual belief that I have of like, that came through me. That's why I'm here. I recite it every day, forever. Never will miss. I remember one time it was like 1 a.m. and I was like, oh my God, I didn't recite my purpose prayer. So I did right before bed. What if you, just imagine what your life could be like if you actually defined what success is to you. If you want to know whether or not I feel successful, all you'd have to do is read that and how in alignment with that am I? If I'm in alignment with that to the best of my ability and bettering my best more and more and more, I'm successful. I feel fulfilled. I've defined this game. Okay? Nothing in life has any meaning except for the meaning you give it. We all are on this journey of life, right? Have you defined it? Do you even know what you consider success? Do you even know what you consider to be a win? And that's the thing. So again, I recommend everybody do this. Write down and say, okay, from a resourceful place, what is a letter that I can write from my highest self, my spiritual self, my infinite self, to my human self, where you can live a life free of regret. If I live up to this standard every single day, and I fail forward every single day to become more and more of this purpose prayer, mind, body, heart, and soul, I will consider myself a success. Okay? It's interesting because for the longest time, I never shared that with anybody. I remember when I first read it to Emilia, I was so nervous. My throat was all red. I'm probably red right now. I decided if it's going to help somebody, I've got to share it. If you don't have a letter from your highest self to your human self, I would argue you haven't defined the game. You don't know what's winning and what's losing. No one else can do this for you. Do it for yourself.
I would consider mine more of a soliloquy.
Oh, yeah. Remember we used to do haikus,
Yeah,
man?
I do. That's where the poet in me came up. I also have one. It's not as long and deep as Alan's, but it sets me on the right path every morning. Like, it's a game changer. And it also helps with your identity, right? One of the things I always tell Alan, I've told the team, I'm sure you guys have heard me say this, I need to be down to earth and real. Like, that is one of my focuses. That's something I write every single day. Okay, I have my own as well. So, and you start small, right? Like, maybe it doesn't come right through you like Alan's did. Maybe you start and just say, well, what are the things that I want to encompass? What do I want to show? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to represent? And you can always work on it as you go. Number 9. This one's a deep one.
Long pause.
That was a good pause. Number 9 is forgive yourself and others. I would say forgive yourself is probably more important because we're talking about improving your relationship with yourself, but forgiving others definitely helps. So I had somebody in my life that I was helping. I was coaching her, and we were talking about her past relationships. And she has been taken advantage of, and she hasn't had great men in her life. And that always bothers me because every woman I've ever talked to has shared with me that she's had some sort of nightmare experience with men. And, I'm usually talking to women, so that's why I have that side of the story. I'm sure it goes both ways. But one of the questions that I asked her was, have you forgiven yourself? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, have you forgiven yourself for allowing that to happen? Have you forgiven yourself for understanding that it's not your fault? Have you forgiven yourself and understood that it's not what you deserve? Right? Just because you settled for it doesn't mean you deserve it. Have you forgiven yourself? And do you feel bad about making that mistake? Like, are you kicking yourself constantly saying, oh my God, I'm so stupid for doing that. I always attract that kind of person, right? If you are holding stuff in yourself, like we talked about when it comes to breathwork, you're not going to have a great relationship with yourself because you're going to think, well, oh, this is my fault. I did this to myself. Like, did you have something to do with it? Sure. Sure you did. But you have to let it go. Take the lesson and leave the pain. Because you're going to have more lessons and you're going to have more pain. But if you constantly, in this example, if she is bringing that into her next relationship, what is going to happen? It's most likely going to manifest in another way. So imagine if you were able to drop the embarrassment, to drop the shame, to drop the insecurity, to drop the blame. Imagine if you were able to let that stuff go. what would your future look like? So my question to you is, what thoughts or beliefs or experiences or memories are you holding on to that you haven't forgiven yet? Who are you holding on to that you haven't forgiven yet? Maybe it's somebody else, right? For me, my dad. Like I've forgiven my dad. My father was not in my life. I didn't meet him till I was like 27 years old. I've let that go. I don't know what he was going through when he was, at the age where he had me. I have no idea. Right? I have no idea. So I want to empathize with that. I'm glad I am the man I am. That's part of why. But I had to not only forgive him, but I had to forgive myself. Like there was one time where I literally said, when my dad dies, I'll pee on his grave. I literally said that. I had to forgive myself and let that go.
My goodness. Wow. I've never heard you say that, I don't think.
I never said that. I'm getting all sorts of...
Appreciate you sharing it.
All sorts of... Well, I think it's important.
It's important.
It's important.
So there's two analogies that keep jumping off for this here. And one of them, they're actually both Wayne Dyer. Because I think Wayne Dyer is very good at this. If you've never studied Wayne's work, he's very good at building a relationship with yourself, especially your spiritual self. Two analogies. First one, no one dies from a snake bite. Snakes bite. But it's the venom that pours through the veins after the bite that kills you. So my question for you is, where do you have venom still pouring through your veins? I remember Shauna Pelton, shout out to her.
I don't know what that noise is. Here we go. It's getting Jeff.
Let's go figure that out. Amy, can you nod if you can still hear me?
You're good. I can still hear you. I don't hear the noise, though.
Okay. We got some error prompts over here. I don't know what's going on. Okay. So I remember when Shauna Pelton did Confident Women's Consortium before Kevin and I did with Joy Strong. And she brought me up. I volunteered, and she brought me up, and she had me do this inner healing with my 14-year-old self. And it was super powerful, and I had cried in front of the whole crowd, and it was just unbelievably healing. I was getting rid of the venom that was in my veins, okay? So whatever it is in the past, you got to heal that stuff if you want to move forward toward a better future. The second analogy that I mentioned, Wayne Dyer talks about when you squeeze an orange, okay? He asks the audience his questions. It's fire. He literally says, am I ever going to get apple juice out of an orange? Am I ever going to get pineapple juice out of an orange? And obviously the audience goes, no, of course not. Why? Because when you squeeze an orange, you get what's inside. When life squeezes us, okay, and this, I really believe this to be true, okay? I used to have a temper way, way, way back. I know Kevin's talked about that too, punching stuff, all that, okay? And it's understandable at times with what we've gone through, but it's our responsibility to fix that. If life squeezes Kevin now, I guarantee you he's going to react differently. What's going to come out of him is different than what would have when we watched that video of you from 2013.
Yeah.
And when life squeezes me now, what comes out is what's inside. My goal is to be a virtuous man who only love comes out, even in response to hate. And it doesn't always, and I talk about it when it doesn't. I talk about people crushing, stepping on my dreams and all that stuff and all that. But we're working through it. And that's what this is. You got to work through that stuff. Forgive yourself. Forgive others, okay? Now, here's the other interesting thing. You can't forgive others until you've forgiven yourself. And so, if you've done shameful things or things you regret or things you have guilt around, and you can forgive yourself for those things, I guess the question I would ask you, and again, we'll move on to the next one here because we've got time constraints, but I think this is really important. It's, what have you not forgiven? Where do you have venom? Where do you... Love is not something you have to go searching for when it's where you come from. If someone does something really negative to me, my goal is to react in a way that's loving. Now, if you mess with someone I love or you put someone I love in danger, I will act differently, and it will not be love that comes out. But generally speaking, we just got responses from our last speech at Mass Maritime, and some of them were negative. And Kevin and I are like, yo, did you read them? And it's like, yeah, well, it's like, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to agree. It is what it is. Some people are probably out there right now saying, I don't agree with you, Alan. That's okay. That's okay. And I think that's important for all of us to realize.
You're up.
I'm up. I'm up?
Yeah, you're up.
Oh my goodness, I've gone off the rails. No. All right, number 10. Oh yeah, that's right. Morning mindset workout. Ooh. So, our dear friend, I have written here Eddie P before Eddie P. So, Eddie Pinero he went to Holy Cross, and I remember 5.5 years ago after my car accident, I started listening. I found this YouTube channel. It's called Your World Within. Okay, and I loved the concept. And I fell in love with this one video. There's actually 2 videos that I fell in love with. One of them is called Ode to Excellence. And then the other one is about basically, if you want to be extraordinary, you can't hang around ordinary people. But I created a morning mindset workout. If you were to go to my YouTube channel, which I don't necessarily recommend because I don't work hard on it and it's not that great, but there is a playlist on there called Morning Mindset Workout or Alan's Mindset Workout. All of the videos on there, those are the ones that I frequent. Okay, now again, this training is about changing your relationship with yourself. You don't go to the gym once and you're fit for life. If you're doing physical training, your body gets stronger. We get that. Are you doing mental training every day? Are you doing emotional training every day? Are you doing spiritual training every day? Ode to Excellence is a video that I've listened to, swear to you, every day for the last 5.5 to 6 years after that car accident. Okay? There's a few things that were musts for me and I just stuck with them. If you have junk coming into your mind, expect to have junk coming out of your life, out of yourself. Junk in, junk out. Junk in, junk out. Now, Ode to Excellence is a video in the first person where Eddie P is doing this poem, this motivational poem about excellence. Okay, Ode to Excellence. I've conditioned myself to be excellent every single day. Emilia and I get out of bed. The first thing I do is put Ode to Excellence on my phone. She gets to wake up to Eddie Pinero too. So, what's interesting, and we were on the phone with Eddie not long ago, and he's like, for anyone who doesn't know, Eddie and I had a little falling out for a time, and we've since forgiven it. And I said, Eddie P, if there's any consolation that I care about you, and just look at the views, I still have watched your video, even though we had a falling out for a time, I still watched every day. And he ended up mentioning that on the last call. But my question for you, what are you conditioning yourself? If you are falling asleep to Netflix that is nonsense, you are ruining your subconscious mind. You're priming your subconscious mind with the wrong stuff. People who fall asleep with the TV on, you are jeffing. Okay? I know you're probably going to disagree with me. It's a bad idea. Instead, put something on first thing in the morning that's going to train you to be excellent or to be whatever your focus is.
Fire. All right, we got to hammer these 2 quickly. All right, so we, as always, we have 2 bonuses. Bonus number 1. Get around people that have great relationships with themselves. We've talked about that a million times. There's a reason we spend time with podcasters and speakers and coaches, because it helps us become the best version of that for us, right? So Amy, we've been using her as examples a lot, especially with her recent graduation. But again, at one point, Amy did not believe that she could go back to school, never mind graduate like she just did. But she is constantly around, whether it's you guys on the Mastermind, whether it's Alan, myself, and Natalie and Tiff, whoever she is around now, they have a good relationship with themselves because they're constantly working on it. Okay, and that starts to rub off. If you hang out with 4 smokers, there's a good chance you'll become the 5th, right? That's just the way it works. We talked about that many, many, many times. So imagine if you had a circle of people around you that really had amazing relationships with themselves. And we could even take that to another level. I know I use the smoking as an example. If you hang around with 5 or 4 couples who are amazingly, deeply, passionately in love, you're far more likely to be the 5th, right? It's like that with anything. So my question is, who do you know in your life, or maybe it's somebody on social media, who do you know that you can get around in some way, shape, or form who has a good relationship with themselves? They have a nice circle of people who believe in themselves. They're doing good things. They're getting better. They have growth mindsets. They're into personal development. They're into growth. That is my question for you.
That was really fire with the smoker thing. I like that.
Analogies are life. I don't know if that's an analogy or an example. I don't know the difference between the 2, but it is what it is.
Hang out with 4 smokers, you're likely to be the 5th. Wow. Powerful. All right, so I'm going to do an audible here.
Oh, I can't do it.
Quickly.
Can't do it.
Super quickly. Got to do it.
Got to do it.
All right, so imagine there's 2 people. One person wakes up every day and does affirmations. They keep the promises they make to themselves. They focus on the wins. They ask the right empowering questions. They meditate every day. They do breath work. They admit hard truths and work on them. They have a purpose prayer that aligns them every day. They forgive themselves and others. And they wake up to a morning mindset workout. And on top of that, all of their friends are next level. That's person 1. Person 2, they wake up and they don't affirm anything. They check social media. They wake up and they don't make any promises to themselves and certainly don't keep them because you can't keep a promise you didn't choose in advance, so they wing it. They don't focus on the wins. They're focused on the losses. They don't have empowering questions. Instead, they have, why do I suck? Why do I always lose? Why do I fail? Why aren't I happy? Your brain's going to come up with answers. They don't meditate. They don't do breath work. They don't admit hard truths. As a matter of fact, they run from them. They don't have a purpose prayer. They don't forgive themselves. They definitely don't forgive others. And they don't have a morning mindset workout. And they don't get around incredible people. Every one of us in this mastermind could be either one of those people. All we have to do is create a system and do it every day. You can do a purpose prayer every day forever. You can do meditation 4 times a week forever. You can choose an empowering question to journal about every day forever. The question is not whether or not you can, it's whether or not you will. And thank you all so much.
Start with 1. Start with 1. We give 10, but that doesn't mean you have, or we give 12, but that doesn't mean you have to do 12 tomorrow. Again, neither of us started with all of these things, right? Start with one of these. Maybe it's affirmations for you if you're down and out, right? If you feel like you're stuck, maybe it's affirmations. Whatever it is for you, just try it. Make a little bit of progress. When that becomes a habit, you can add something else, but don't overwhelm yourself by thinking you have to do all these tomorrow because that is a setup for jeffing.
Yeah. Pick 5 to thrive. Pick 5. Start there.
Amy!
You want to send us on off? Any questions, by the way?
Hammered it.
I know we only have a minute.
Oh, yeah, we jeffed it.
I actually wanted to mention some of the awesome conversation that we had going on.
Love it. Please.
So we had people posting in different links, some different, we posted the YouTube playlist that you mentioned.
Nice.
Somebody added the core values, purpose prayer document that you sent them, somebody that you coach.
Oh, nice.
Somebody else talked about, this is also with Tony and you can get it here, and looked at that. So really, when you're on this mastermind, you're getting so much more when you're doing it live because these things are not getting posted later.
True
Such
story
a good
right
point,
there. It's a
Natalie.
true
Such
story
a good
right
point.
there.
So
fire.
you might not have seen them talking, but we've been talking a lot.
Awesome.
did
That makes me so happy. I'm so grateful you all are meeting each other. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. Because again, it's about team. It's about tribe.
Absolutely.
Hashtag tribe.
Right?
Hashtag tribe.
All right, Amy, you want to send us on out of here with your outro?
Oh, sure. All right. So just as a reminder, we do the 5:30 pre-mastermind before the mastermind starts at 6:00. Next week, we are going to be talking about the questions you should ask yourself if you want a next level life. That one should be absolutely fire. I'm so excited for that. And then we are also, Natalie has been very diligently working on something incredible for everybody in Next Level University that we are excited to share in a few weeks. So stay tuned.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada
Strong
bing,
work.
bada boom. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much. Reach out with questions anytime. Kevin and I are committed to getting better at getting back to you. Mostly me. Kevin does a great job.
I appreciate that.
And Amy does a great job for me, but I want to get better as well.
And as always, we do not have fans. We have family. We love you, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Talk to you soon.